Under the cellar steps, she thought, with his head bashed in and his goddamn letter under his folded hands. And it's worth it, she thought. Oh, it's worth it. This is Shirley Jackson, and this line is from her short, gory and curious story, Got a Letter from Jimmy. It's one of the shorter tales in her collection, The Lottery and Other Stories, and it begs a lot of disturbing questions. Who is Jimmy? What is in his letter? And what has driven this woman, our protagonist, to such brutal, murderous extremes? This story comes with a content warning that you can find in the description below. It's yet another chilling tale that deals in the dark trappings of Jackson's domestic horror. Before we get stuck in, I'd like to welcome you to the second series of Tales by Candlelight, this time featuring the work of Shirley Jackson. I'll read you 3 stories and then treat you to a little close reading that explores the sadistic, sad and strange goings-on in Jackson's nightmarish suburbanity. This format gives you time to have a think about the stories yourself, and please let me know your analyses in the comments or join us on the Discord for a more in-depth discussion. And of course, make sure you subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss the other stories and my professional analysis of Jackson's unsettling vignettes of domestic discordance. So, for the final time this series, please sit back, relax, tunnel into that special place inside where no one can hurt you, or close your eyes and put in those headphones and brace yourself for Jackson's Got a Letter from Jimmy. Sometimes, she thought, stacking the dishes in the kitchen, sometimes I wonder if men are quite sane, any of them. Maybe they're all just crazy, and every other woman knows it but me, and my mother never told me, and my roommate just didn't mention it, and all the other wives think I know. Got a letter from Jimmy today, he said when he was unfolding his napkin. So you got it at last, she thought. So he finally broke down and wrote you. Maybe now it'll be all right. Everything's settled and friendly again. What did he have to say? She asked casually. Dunno, he said. Didn't open it. My God, she thought, seeing it clearly, all the way through, right then. She waited. Going to send it back to him tomorrow unopened. I could have figured that one out by myself, she thought. I couldn't have kept that letter closed for 5 minutes. I would have figured out something nasty, like tearing it up and sending it back in little pieces, or getting someone to write a sharp answer for me, but I couldn't have kept it around for 5 minutes. Had lunch with Tom today, he said, as though the subject were closed. Just exactly as though the subject were closed, she thought. Just exactly as though he never expected to think about it again. Maybe he doesn't, she thought. My God. I think you ought to open Jimmy's letter, she said. Maybe it will all be just as easy as that, she thought. Maybe he'll say, all right, and go and open it. Maybe he'll go home and live with his mother for a while. Why? He said. Start easy, she thought. You'll kill yourself if you don't. Oh, I guess because I'm curious and I'll just die if I don't see what's in it, she said. Open it, he said. Just watch me make a move for it, she thought. Seriously, she said, it's so silly to hold a grudge against a letter. Against Jimmy, all right, but not to read a letter out of spite is silly. Oh, God, she thought. I said silly. I said silly twice. That finishes it. If he hears me say he's silly, I'm through. Oh, I could talk all night. Why should I read it? He said. I wouldn't be interested in anything he had to say. I would. Open it, he said. Oh, God, she thought. Oh, God, oh, God. I'll steal it out of his briefcase. I'll scramble it up with his eggs tomorrow, but I won't take a dare like that. He broke my arm. Okay, she said. So I'm not interested. Make him think you're through. Let him get nicely settled in his chair. Let him get to the lemon pie. Get him off on some other subject. Had lunch with Tom today, he said. Stacking the dishes in the kitchen, she thought. Maybe he means it. Maybe he could kill himself first. Maybe he really wasn't curious, and even if he were, he'd drive himself into a hysterical state trying to read through the envelope locked in the bathroom. Or maybe he just got it and said, oh, from Jimmy, and threw it in his briefcase and forgot it. I'll murder him if he did, she thought. I'll bury him in the cellar. Later, when he was drinking his coffee, she said, going to show it to John? John will die too, she thought. John will edge around it just like I'm doing. Show what to John? He said. Jimmy's letter. Oh, he said. Sure. A tremendous triumph captured her. So he really wants to show it to John, she thought. So he just wants to see for himself that he's still mad. He wants John to say, really? Are you still mad at Jimmy? And he wants to be able to say, yes. Out of her great triumph, she thought, he really has been thinking about it all this time too. And she said, before she could stop herself, thought you were going to send it back unopened. He looked up. I forgot, he said. Guess I will. Had to open my mouth, she thought. He forgot. The trouble is, she thought, he really did forget. It slipped his mind completely. He never gave it a second thought. If it was a snake, it would have bit him. Under the cellar steps, she thought, with his head bashed in and his goddamn letter under his folded hands. And it's worth it, she thought. Oh, it's worth it. Want more Shirley Jackson? Watch my reading of her quietly disturbing story, Of Course, by clicking here next.